Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and we are at the Larry Miller Dodge Ram Jeep Chrysler here in Sandy, Utah to look at a Jeep Gladiator. This is one of the vehicles that I am potentially going to add to the off-road fleet, and this is like a whole series of videos where I'm going to different dealerships that I film with and looking at cars that I'm potentially going to add. And so, yeah, with that being said, as always, I'm going to include a link to the dealership's inventory in the description down below. Definitely check them out, and then also my car buying guide as well if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car. Let's get into it. So funny enough, I was actually going to go over to the Jeep side because this is actually a split store. You have like Dodge Ram on this side, and then you have Jeep Chrysler on the other side. But then I saw this in front of the Dodge Ram store, which I was already at because I was filming a video with one of my friends over here. And so I'm like, you know what? We'll just use this for example's sake. So I think that a Jeep Gladiator Rubicon, not Mojave, but Rubicon, I'll explain why I'd look at the Rubicon over the Mojave, could be a really cool addition to the channel. Now, the Gladiator comes standard with the 3.6 liter V6. It's good for 285 horsepower and then 260 pound-feet of torque. That is not the powertrain that I would get. I would actually get the EcoDiesel powertrain, which is a 3 liter V6, goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Again, it's a diesel. It's good for about like, what, 440 pound-feet of torque roughly, and then like 260 horsepower. I might be off on my numbers a little bit. I haven't reviewed an EcoDiesel Gladiator actually ever on the channel. I've reviewed a Wrangler though. But the point I'm trying to make is that would be the powertrain I would go for if I were to get a Gladiator. And after owning my Wrangler for a little bit that has like the satin black front grille, I would definitely get that as an option because I think it just makes the vehicle look so much cooler. But with the Rubicon, right, you get the venting here on the hood, you got the Rubicon logo there on the side. This one has an aftermarket front bumper. I probably would do that if I were to get a Gladiator. Now, it does come standard with 33-inch tires from the factory. If I were to get a Gladiator, I would definitely do a lift and add 37s. We're skipping 35s altogether. If I'm gonna go out and lift it and spend the money, we're gonna go big 37s. Now, the Gladiator does come stock with Fox shocks. I obviously would have to change out the shocks to something else. I don't know if I would stick with Fox or not. There's obviously cool kits from like Terraflex, for example. They make really cool shocks for trucks, and so that might be the route to go. Now, something I love about the Gladiator is it has a solid front axle, which obviously isn't great for daily drivability, but it's great for rock crawling, and obviously adding an off-roader to the fleet, it kind of makes sense. Now, you can get rock rails from the factory for the Gladiator as well. Now, with the Rubicon, it has a 4:10 axle ratio as standard. You can't get the Extreme Recon package on the Gladiator yet, so that is the only axle ratio that you can get on the vehicle, if that makes sense. And so I probably wouldn't upgrade the axle ratio because I feel like 410s is enough to move 37s if I have a diesel, right? And actually, the diesel might have a different axle ratio. I'm going to have to look that up after the video. If you know in the comment section below what the axle ratio is for the EcoDiesel, let me know. I don't think it's 410. I think it's like 373. So, yeah, sorry about that. This is just an impromptu video talking about this. Now, the Gladiator as like a family type vehicle, because that's kind of what we're talking about in this series. This is going to be like an off-roader for the channel, but then also, you know, a family type vehicle. Is pretty good from a space perspective. This vehicle is locked and shut, but anyways, you know, you've got good space up front. You've got a high seating position, which is great. You can fit a car seat in the back seat. Now, this is probably the smallest vehicle that I've mentioned in this series, I think, from a space perspective with the rear seat. So it does lose from the practicality standpoint with that, but it does have a truck bed. This one has a shell on it, which is pretty cool if you ask me. But yeah, having a truck bed, that adds to practicality because then I can do some truck stuff with it. But we'll kind of talk about some other stuff in a second that might not necessarily matter all that much. Now, the reason I'd get the Rubicon over the Mojave is, first off, I like the looks of the Rubicon a little bit more now. The hood scoop in the Mojave is cool, but I have a Wrangler 392, so if I want to drive a Jeep with a hood scoop, I'll just drive my 392. But the reason that I really like the Rubicon is we have a locking front and rear differential, and we have a sway bar disconnect. The Mojave package only has a locking rear differential because it's supposed to be the high-speed package, but it only comes with the V6, which is not a very powerful motor, and so it's not really great at high speed. You could pretty much tackle just as much high-speed stuff with the Rubicon as you could with the Mojave. The Mojave might be a slight amount faster through the stuff because it has better shock absorption, but again, I could just do aftermarket shocks on this and then fix that problem because I would be doing them anyways. So I feel like the Rubicon's just the route to go if I were to get a Gladiator, basically from an equipment standpoint. And so, yeah, to quickly sum things up before we talk about, I guess, you know, my overall thoughts is, again, 37s, lift, EcoDiesel, Rubicon, Gladiator. What do you think about that one? Okay, so we're gonna be driving during this portion because I was supposed to be home probably about like an hour ago. I always manage to run late and normal. Ben Hardy fashion, which is kind of disappointing. But anyways, let's kind of talk about the pros and cons of the Gladiator. So what I already mentioned is ride quality of the Gladiator isn't all that great from a daily driver. Should I go that way? It looks like there's lots of... Let's go this way. So ride quality isn't great from a daily driver perspective with the Gladiator because of the solid front axle. Ooh, C8 Corvette, that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's a little bit of a miss. And then there's not a ton of space in the back seat. So obviously with Ben Hardy Jr. coming along, and by the way, it's not their name's not going to be Ben Hardy Jr. Trust me. Okay, anyways, with the baby coming along, right, that is a little bit of the downside with, you know, the space for a car seat in the back. So that is definitely something to consider with the Gladiator. And then, you know, on the pro side of things, the EcoDiesel will get great gas mileage, and, you know, so that wouldn't really necessarily save me money, but it would give me more fuel range off-road. The reason I say it wouldn't save me money is because diesel is way more expensive right now than regular gas, and so even though I get better gas mileage, I think I'd probably still spend about the same amount of cost in fuel, especially if I lift it and throw 37s on it. I think it would probably get, you know, maybe a little bit better fuel economy than TRX, but then when I'm paying more for diesel, then, right, it's gonna kind of zero it out a little bit. And then aside from that, like I said, more range off-road. That's what I really, like, the diesel is so attractive to me because, like, you basically will get so much range off-road that I'll be able to, like, just go explore for days. And, you know, think about that, like, fun family trips outdoors for days, and, like, you'd be able to do it because you have the fuel economy to do it. Like, you have the fuel range. Whereas if I try to do that with the TRX, you got to come back after, like, the first day because you got to fill up with gas again. So I do like that part of the Gladiator. Aside from that, we already have a Jeep on the channel, so, like, it's different, but at the same time, it's still a Jeep. And so, I don't know, people might not want to watch the content on it because it's, like, not different enough. Like, the other vehicles that I've mentioned here in this little series of, you know, what I could potentially buy are all significantly different than what I currently own from, like, a brand perspective, because we've talked about Mercedes G-Wagons, we've talked about Chevy Silverado ZR2s, we've talked about Toyota Tundra TRD Pros. So, like, those are all different brands than what I own right now. And so, you know, just different interior, exterior, all that kind of stuff. Whereas this is different than what I own because the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 is, like, in a realm all of its own. But it's still a Jeep, and it's still, like, the Gladiator is a Wrangler with a truck bed, ultimately. And so, yeah, I mean, interesting. It's definitely an interesting thing to think about. I want you guys to let me know what you think about the Gladiator idea, if this is your favorite one so far in this little series of me trying to figure out what we are going to get. And yeah, I think that's pretty much going to sum things up. Again, car buying guide. Save time and money, especially, like, this car market is crazy. Everyone thinks that it's cooling down, but it's still crazy, even though it's cooling down a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that that'll be all. I'll see you guys.